at the top of the heap in sports reporting on college football. I want to get your reaction to what you've heard all day, both in that room and with your sources.
Yeah, I think the smoke was building to this. I think that there was conversations about, what was going on in this space. And so I wouldn't say that I was shocked when this news came out. I also wouldn't say I was pleased when this news came out, because I was trying to pursue the same story. But I think there's certainly smoke to this topic. Now, whether this ends with Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, I think that's a very long way to go. But I think certainly there is some real smoke behind this topic. And I think that there are going to be some very important conversations happening in the Big 12 and around the country now that this news is out there.
Yeah, and just to follow up for 1 second on that, John, when it first came out, I was watching it like you were in real time. Jimbo was up there, but just talking to people out in the lobby, a lot of people were laughing at it. They thought it was just a crazy rumor. I know you didn't think that,
right.
But how do you see the story changing over the next few hours?
Well, I think so. Since the stories come out, we've seen non-denial statements from Texas and Oklahoma in which they have essentially said nothing in those statements. You've seen Oklahoma State come out with a very strong statement, and I think that's going to be one of the issues going forward, is that Oklahoma State, which is, let's be real here, the little brother to Oklahoma, doesn't want to get left behind. They want to make sure that they are with Oklahoma the whole way. So they already have come out and said it. We've seen Ross B. York was on your show, coming out pretty strongly. We want to be the only Texas school in the SEC. So you're going to see a lot of public posturing from here on out as to everybody kind of puts out their different feelings about what they want and don't want. And that'll be happening very publicly, as we've seen, and also privately, which I think is going to be happening a lot in the Big 12, as all the Texas schools that are in the Big 12 don't want Big Brother Texas to leave without them.
No, and I can assure you, Texas doesn't care about you. Joe, you've watched it as well. What do you think?
I definitely love Texas's flair for drama. Dropping that card right before Jimbo came on stage. I think that was, really calculated by Texas on their part to upstage Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. Horns down. I wanted Jimbo to drop the horns down, but he didn't. I think if they want to have 16 super conference teams, that's kind of the trend that's the way the trend of college football is moving right now. So I would have to say that, Texas would definitely shake up the SEC.
Yeah, and Joe, let's talk about that for a second, because there's always this conversation about realignment and moving Auburn to the east, and it's a conversation on a sleepy April day on this program and others. But I mean, there would be a seismic shift. I mean, those are not East. Missouri's probably saying, well, we're not. We're a Western school too. Those are not SEC East schools out in Oklahoma and Texas. So what do you think it would look like?
Yeah, leaving Oklahoma State behind would be the big issue, but moving.
Well, I don't want to speak for anyone, but I don't think they're coming.
Right. Yeah.
Do you?
No.
I mean, that's always the issue, and that's, I think, when we've gone through realignment in the past, it feels like there's always that very attractive school that everybody wants, Texas, Oklahoma, UNC in the past, and then there's a little brother who kind of gets attached to them, and then you get, the governor doesn't want one to leave without the other, and that's what always seems to complicate these issues, and that's going to be the next step, I think, here, is the complications to all this.
Yeah, we've got it. It sounds like a presidential election here with dueling statements. Oklahoma State now out with a statement. Everybody's out with a statement, and by the way, I would also add that these statements are barely worth the paper they're printed on, assuming they're on paper.
I think we can avoid that now. I mean, we could just do it all digital, right?
You're right. So whatever the bandwidth is that they wasted on that tweet, because I do want to ask you, John. Somebody's covered Greg Sankey, and we'll get to you on Greg Sankey in a minute. He's clearly. He's aware of the story. He's been hoping, as you said, it doesn't come out this week. What do you read into what he has said so far?
Well, he said nothing so far. I think he has reiterated over and over again, I only want to talk about 2021 and going forward. You know, if you want to read into body language, I was following him downstairs for a while. It's kind of fun just watching him. Very loose. I mean, he was doing like 30-minute long radio interviews with different radio stations right after this all broke. I mean, it didn't seem like a guy who was very worried about this. I think it showed to me he knows I've got a very strong hand that I can play here. And again, it's, you know, I'm sure if we had a live feed on Bob Bowlesby right now, he might be a little bit different than how Greg is acting. But I think he's a confident. I mean, think about it. Think about what this story is. It's Texas and Oklahoma being interested in the SEC, not the other way around. Right. I mean, obviously the SEC would be interested in those two schools, but it's them interested in joining the league. So, you know, Commissioner Sankey's in a great position. And, you know, we've talked on your show over the last year about how strong of a year he had. You know, adding Texas and Oklahoma would be a legacy-defining moment for him as a commissioner. Yeah,
I mean, I would have thought, Joe Goodman, that there's nothing Greg Sankey could do to top what he's already done, but this would top it. I mean, these are. I mean, you go into Rodeo Drive, the finest shop in town, and I mean that's what we're talking about with Texas and Oklahoma. Even with Texas's swoon, they are top of the heap brand, and you know what is this all about? This is about television, and it's hard to find two more attractive television partners outside of this league already than those two.
The biggest in the country. They would be the bells of the ball. You know, that's the super conference that would trump all super conferences just out of the gate, and then everything would fall into place after that.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.